The following statements have often been made, but their meaning has been glossed over. Statements like, I am walking, or I am sitting, or I am tired. In these statements, what can seem to be glossed over or overlooked is the I, as there is immersion in the walking, or in the hunger, or in the tiredness, or indeed in the pain. After a while, however, it becomes abundantly clear that the walking stops and starts. The hunger comes and goes. The tiredness waxes and wanes. The pain rises and falls. And yet, I do not rise and fall, come and go, or wax and wane with any of these experiences. All these statements made by the finite mind pertain to the physical body. Since I do not go with the body, I am not it. For a while, it can seem as if there must be a separate seer seeing a gross, visible object, or that there must be a separate hearer hearing a plane in the distance, or that there must be a separate smeller or taster or toucher corresponding to each of these three experiences. After I investigate whether I am the seer, the hearer, etc., it becomes clear to me that I do not come and go with the act of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Therefore, I cannot be a separate senser. Other statements I commonly make are those like, I am thinking, or I know, or I am in doubt, or I am confused. These statements pertaining rather to the finite mind reveal through careful scrutiny or inquiry that the thoughts about thinking or knowing or doubting or about being confused wax and wane, come and go, rise and set, while I, this is the discovery, do not wax and wane, come and go, or rise and set with them. Therefore, I cannot be the finite mind. What hereby is brought starkly into view is the nature of the I. At this stage, I hear Zen Master Dogen's wonderful counsel. Take the backward step and turn the light within. When I turn the light within, I effectively turn the light on myself. Or better put, I understand directly that I am self-effulgent, just as the sun is self-luminous or self-shining. At this point, I understand that I myself am separate from all objective experiences. However, what remains, of course, is a sense of separation. I and objective experiences, or I and arisings. Therefore, taking my stand as the light of awareness that I am, I go back and, so to speak, look down on objective experiences. And what is my first discovery? It is that all objective experiences are, in fact, taking place within me. They are shining with my light, the light of awareness. Indeed, they rise and fall in the very heart of my being. They come and they go at the very center of my aware presence. Therefore, when the question is asked, in what do all objective experiences appear? The answer is, why in me? Why in my very center? Hence the line or two lines from Jesus. Split the wood, and I am there. Lift the stone, and I am there. A modest revision. Split the wood, and I always am right here. Lift the stone, and lo, I always am right here. For I am intimate with all experiences, with perceiving, with sensing, with thinking and feeling. However, after this discovery, I note that there's still a subtle distinction, or shall we say, separation between the experiences that are rising and setting in me and me, myself. However intimate I am with experiences, the subtle mental superimposition is that these experiences or arisings nonetheless remain separate from me. Just as a sailboat in the midst of the vast open sea can be said to be in the vast open sea without thereby being identical with it, without thereby being made of it. This is what we seem to imagine. We imagine still, and notice the word imagine, that experiences are made of some kind of stuff, like wooden sails, while we are made of subtler, or more rarefied stuff, the stuff of pure consciousness. This is a puzzle rather, or a riddle. How can it be that experiences are made of consciousness? For experiences are shaped and colored and formed, while consciousness is neither shaped nor colored nor formed. How can the teachings say that they're fundamentally and at heart one and the same? That is, how can it really be that all experiences, so it is said, all these forms, shapes, are actually made of pure, rarefied, beyond rarefied consciousness? How can formlessness actually be also form? The mind, understandably, is confused. This is the topic that we take up today, that we inquire deeply into. We will go from the easiest case, that of a thought, to the middle case, that of a sensation, to the hardest case, that of a sound. Begin then the investigation with a thought, specifically with the number 5. Let the number 5 arise and go deeply into the question, what is it that the thought 5 is made of? We need to be clear, therefore we need at the outset to rule out an unjustifiable and indeed unverifiable hypothesis, namely that it's somehow made of brain stuff. Remember that in the direct path, our methodological assumption is that we only ever know or have access to experience. Brain stuff only makes sense from the point of view of experience as a thought, as a posit or a mental posit. If this is not yet clear to you, to wit, that all we ever know or have access to is experience, then go over the matter over and over again until it is clear that we never actually are able to reach out beyond or outside of the bounds of experience. That reaching out turns out to be, for example, a visualization or an abstraction that is a fairly subtle thought, but a thought nonetheless. Therefore, in what follows, we rule out all unverifiable hypotheses and stick only with our actual experience. We raise the question again then. Allow the thought 5 to arise and consider the question, what is it that 5 is made of? Notice that there are only 3 possible cases. 1, that it is made of an objective experience other than thought. 2, that it is made of itself. This thought is made of this thought stuff. And 3, that this thought is made of consciousness. Go with the first candidate. This thought is made of some objective experience other than thought. Well, suppose that this thought 5 is made of bodily sensation stuff. If this were so, then we should be able to find bodily sensation stuff inside the thought. After all, just as a table is made of wood, so this thought should be made of sensation. Allow the thought 5 to arise and see whether you find a sensation. Allow it to arise a few more times and continue to check. Is it discernibly made of a sensation? Just to be clear that we know what a sensation feels like, turn inside the body and feel a sensation. Now go to the thought 5 and see whether it's immersed or steeped in sensation stuff. It is not. Okay, well, go to a second possibility. Perhaps this thought 5 is made of a sight. So open your eyes if they are closed. Here is a sight. Allow the thought 5 to arise. Is it made of sight stuff? Try to get sight stuff to be the material out of which the thought 5 is made. Or visualize injecting this sight stuff into the thought 5 and see what this is like. Is it possible? When the visualization arises, the thought 5 is nowhere to be found. Or back to the original question, when the sight arises, 5 is nowhere to be found. Go deeply into the thought 325. When you go deeply into the thought 325, the sight is not present. Therefore, how could sight stuff be the stuff out of which the thought 5 is made? Allow the eyes to close. A searching inquiry would reveal that all other objective experiences fail as well. Therefore, this thought 5 is not made out of any other objective experience. Turn to the second candidate then, namely, that the thought 5 is made, tautologically speaking, out of itself. Allow the thought 5 to arise. Provisionally speaking, this is not a bad candidate. 5 does feel intuitively as if it is made out of thought form, in this case, out of itself. However, there is a mystery afoot. To bring out this mystery, consider the question, do I find in my actual experience two things, loosely speaking? The first, the thought 5, and the second, consciousness? Or do I only ever discover one total seamless experience? Here, the invitation is to look for the seam that divides 5 from consciousness in your direct experience. What is self-evident is that we never find such a seam. Instead, we only discover one seamless, total experience. Then we're left with a puzzle. Is this experience made of thought or of consciousness? Suppose, once again, that it is made of thought. This will give rise to a number of confusions or absurdities. First, if this thought is made of thought stuff, then is that thought stuff like particles or atoms, or in any case, like pieces that come together, collate or conglomerate to produce 5? And then is it that the 5 somehow disperses like little pieces or atoms after it is gone? Go and look right now for those pieces, parts, out of which the thought 5 is apparently made. When the thought 5 arises, do you notice any stitching together or production of the 5 out of discernible parts? Out of, that is, thought stuff. And when the 5 disappears, does it disperse its little bits and pieces? And if so, where do those little bits and pieces go? In fact, in the last meditation, we established the understanding that thoughts rise and fall within me, consciousness. So somehow, self generating, perhaps ex nihilo, bits and pieces of thought stuff rise up within consciousness, form the thought five, and then disperse into consciousness, but without ever somehow actually merging with consciousness. Now, is that your actual experience? Is this what is actually being observed and understood? The experience is just not like this at all. The five rises and sets. We never find any evidence for some kind of building block theory. Therefore, we can let go of this particular belief. We are not done, however, with investigating whether thought stuff could somehow be that out of which this one seamless experience is made. Go further. Let us call this thought stuff thought substance. And if that term, substance, is to hold any weight, then it must be a support or substratum, as well as the stuff out of which other experiences are made. Let's suppose that this thought substance is that out of which consciousness is made. Let's look directly at consciousness, that is, at ourself, and see whether we can discover any thought substance, form, thought form. Turn inside and ask the question, am I simply, gently, innocently, naturally aware? Or ask the question, do I exist? And go immediately to the experience of simply being aware, or of simply being, or of simply being yourself. Stay here and consider, in your actual experience of yourself, do you see or discern any thought substance, any thought form, let alone the form five? Can you pick out any thought substance whatsoever? And if so, where is it exactly? When you stick keenly, gently, knowingly, with the experience of being simply yourself, you reconfirm the simple, direct fact that you are formless, and as such cannot be limited by a form, let alone a thought form. You find nothing to the idea or proposal that what you are made of is thought substance. In fact, you can't make heads or tails of that proposal. Simply put, it just doesn't make any sense. My experience of myself is not like that at all. Come back then to the puzzle, and you allow the thought 5 to arise. What is it that it is made of? It can't be made of some other objective experience. All attempts to take it to be made of thought substance fail. Therefore, we're left with the last candidate, namely the thought 5, and by implication or extension, all thoughts whatsoever are actually made of consciousness of myself. This is the most natural position, and it's not a position. Go back. Note that the thought 5 rises and falls in your light. Realize that it can't ransack whatever it is that it is made of from some other thing, because it is, in a manner of speaking, confined to consciousness, confined to the bounds, which are actually boundless, of consciousness. And here, to repeat, there is one seamless experience, the experience of 5. Consciousness is the support of 5. Consciousness is, metaphorically speaking, the space in which the thought arises. Could it be that 5 is made of consciousness? When we drop all ideas about sailboats and open seas, we open ourselves to this beautiful and clear possibility. This is that the formless consciousness that we are, shall we say, miraculously, is able to take the shape or the form of 5 without ever leaving itself, without ever changing its very nature. In other words, consciousness is freely appearing in and as the shape 5, while also abiding as itself. Five is how consciousness is experiencing. 5 is how I am experiencing. 5 is how I am experiencing myself. Indeed, five is how I am experiencing only myself. If what is said so far is true of thoughts, it can be asked, is it also true of sensations? Go to the total body sensation now and consider the question, what is it that this total sensation is made of? The prakriyas or lines of inquiry are indeed the same. This sensation can only be made of an objective experience other than sensation, or it can be made of itself, or it can be made of consciousness. Once it is clear that no objective experience can ever touch or make contact with any other objective experience, then the first candidate can easily be ruled out. However, explore but one possibility here. Could the sensation be made of sound? Listen to the sound of this voice or to some sound appearing just now and examine the question, is the sound stuff that out of which this total body sensation is made? Does sound go into, or sound material go into the very make or nature of this sensation? No, and the question seems totally nonsensical. It's difficult even to entertain it, since it's not even clear what could be made of it. A thoroughgoing investigation would reveal that every other objective experience cannot be the material cause of this sensation. Could the sensation be made of itself? Of sensation stuff? Is there some kind of stuff or material, like fabrics, parts, atoms, or otherwise, that can be discernibly experienced, and that is that out of which the present sensation is somehow a synthesis? You are the witness. Watch and see whether there are parts that come together to make up this total body sensation. Is that what your experience is like? Or Isn't it rather the case that the experience simply shines spontaneously with a glorious life, a glorious light? Miraculously, the body's sensation simply and spontaneously arises when it does. There is no evidence to the view that it is made of sensation stuff or of sensation parts. Go deeper still. When you examine or scrutinize your experience of this sensation, do you find that there are two things? First, the sensation, and second, awareness? Or do you simply find one total, seamless experience? We are doing our due diligence, so to say. So look for any split, seam, border, or boundary that somehow demarcates the difference between sensation and me, consciousness. Everywhere we look, we find only homogeneous experiencing, only a single, unbroken experience or sensation. But this is calling into question the view according to which experiences are like sailboats, while we are like the boundless ocean in which they sail, but not out of which they're made. Is that true? Let go of that image, of that superimposition, and return to this one seamless experience, presently termed total body sensation. Suppose that consciousness is made out of sensation substance. Then go deeply into the question once again, are you aware? Or put it to yourself, am I aware? And when you stay only with the experience of being aware or being conscious or being presence, do you actually discover any sensation, material, or substance? Sometimes the mind rises in here and says, yes. It's as if the foreground of experience is pixelated or lit up. Let go of that thought. Go more deeply into your own being and ask, am I made of sensation? If I'm made of sensation, then I must come and go, unless this is some kind of utterly mysterious kind of sensation with which I'm entirely unfamiliar. Do I come and go? Do I have any parts? I have no evidence for my coming or my going, nor do I have any evidence for my having parts. Therefore, how could I be made of sensation substance? Go back to the bodily sensation. It must be made of something or other. It can't be made of any other objective experience. It cannot simply be made of sensation, since that would also entail holding that consciousness must too be made of sensation. Therefore, be very open to the possibility that this total body sensation is made of me, of consciousness. Could this be how just now consciousness is shining forth and forming itself? All the while, consciousness remains only unchangingly itself. Suppose that consciousness were made of boundless clay, and that therefore all there was clay. What if consciousness were forming pots and unforming pots out of itself, or forming all manner of pots and clay spoons and clay buildings and so on and so forth? If we simply looked at consciousness pure, we would only find shapeless, formless, boundless clay. And if we were to identify entirely, do the best you can with this mental image, with being clay, then we would only find ourself. We would only be ourself. But what if we also, so to say, rise up out of ourself and beat ourself, bend ourself, mold or shape ourself without ever leaving or ultimately changing ourself? Drop the image. What if then thought, like five, and sensation are like that? What if they are made of and only of one single, indivisible, infinite, eternal substance, consciousness? Now I come to the hardest case. Let us go with sound, perhaps even harder than that. to be explored on some other occasion, would be sight. Allow hearing to arise and ask, what is it that hearing is made of? We know, thanks to the last meditation, that hearing shines by my light and therefore can be said to be in me or to be occurring at my center. Fine, but what is it that it is made of? The first candidate is that it is made of some objective experience that is different from hearing. A very thorough investigation would reveal that such is impossible. Hearing is not made of thought stuff or thought form itself, nor is it made of sight or smell or taste, nor is it made of sensation. Could hearing be made of itself? The best we could make out would be, once again, that hearing would be some kind of bits and pieces that brought together form this act of hearing itself before all of it dissolves or disperses. Is that your experience? Is it true that just as a table is made of wood, so hearing is made of bits and pieces of hearing stuff? The mind might forget that we are sticking with actual experience. So it might say that it's made of sound waves or something like that. But we have no evidence in our direct experience for sound waves or something like that. That's not a confirmable matter. Rather, it's a mere hypothesis. And as such is simply another thought. Accordingly, it can be dispensed with. We come back to the experience of hearing. Is awareness. That is what it is that I am made of, or what it is rather that I am, actually made of the experience or stuff of hearing. Am I audible? The question is not whether it's possible for witnessing awareness to open to the experience of hearing. The question rather is whether awareness itself, that is consciousness, myself, is made of hearing stuff, of hearing substance. Is that your actual experience? Since, as we have found so far, The experience of hearing cannot be divided into two parts, one hearing and two consciousness. And since hearing substance cannot be found to be that out of which I, consciousness, am made, what inexorably am I led to? What is it that, as it were, all signs point to? What cannot be denied? What am I invited then to surrender to? It is that hearing right now is made out of consciousness. Then thinking, sensing, and perceiving are all made out of consciousness. Replace these mental divisions with a subtler one, namely experiencing. Then experiencing is made of consciousness. Taste this understanding. I, consciousness, am experiencing right now. I, consciousness, am experiencing myself right now. Every experience is my experience. Every experience bespeaks me. With every experience, I experience myself. When I am alone, I am pure consciousness. And when experiences appear, I am experiencing myself. I have only ever actually been experiencing myself. All along, I have only ever actually been experiencing myself.